The alarm bells rang through the cold metal halls of Vigil's eye station. Commander Thexval moved his forearms quickly across the control panels, his crystal eyes glowing bright blue with worry. He had been watching the edge of space for 30 years, and nothing like this had ever happened before. "Report," he shouted to his crew. Senior Technician Zara looked up from her screen, her green skin pale with fear. "Sir, we have detected something moving through hyperspace, but it doesn't match anything in our databases." Thexval walked over to her station. On the screen, a red dot moved across the star map faster than anything should be able to move. The numbers next to it made no sense. "Check the readings again," he ordered. Zara's fingers danced over the controls. "I've checked them 5 times, sir. The ship is moving at impossible speeds. Our fastest ships can barely reach 1/10 of what this thing is doing." The Galactic Empire had ruled most of the galaxy for over 300 years. They knew every ship design, every species, every piece of technology that existed. Their massive computer systems held information about 40,000 different alien races. Nothing moved through space without the Empire knowing about it. Until now. "What about the ship's design?" Thexval asked. "Can we identify what species built it?" Zara shook her head. "That's the problem, sir. The computer says the ship doesn't exist. When I try to scan for its origin, I get error messages. No manufacturing codes, no quantum signatures, nothing that matches any known technology." Thexval felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of service, the Empire's computers had never failed to identify a ship. The Empire's knowledge was supposed to be complete. "Show me the energy readings," he said. The screen changed to show waves of energy flowing behind the mysterious ship. The patterns were unlike anything in their records. The energy looked almost alive, pulsing and changing like a heartbeat. "Sir," another technician called out, "the ship's hull materials don't match anything in our element database. Our scanners are saying the materials shouldn't exist." Thexval stared at the readings. The Empire had cataloged every element in the universe, had absorbed the knowledge of thousands of conquered worlds. How could there be materials they didn't know about? "Lieutenant Corex," he called to his communications officer. "Send a message to Imperial High Command on Nexus Prime, Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a Code Crimson situation." Lieutenant Corex, a tall blue-skinned alien with 6 fingers on each hand, began typing the message. "What should I tell them about the ship, sir?" "Tell them we've detected an unknown vessel of impossible design, moving at impossible speeds, made of impossible materials. Tell them it appears to be heading toward Imperial space." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of computers. Everyone knew what Code Crimson meant. It was the highest level of alert, reserved for threats to the Empire itself. In 300 years it had only been used twice. "Sir," Zara said quietly, "there's something else. The ship's path isn't random. It's following old hyperspace routes that haven't been used in centuries. Routes that were destroyed during the Great Purge." Thexval's crystal eyes dimmed. The Great Purge was not spoken of often. 200 years ago, the Empire had decided that certain species were too dangerous to exist. Their worlds had been destroyed, their histories erased, their very existence wiped from the records. Only the highest-ranking officers knew the details. "Are you certain about the routes?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I cross-referenced the ship's path with the old navigation charts. It's following pathways that lead to sectors that are supposed to be empty space now." Thexval walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, stars twinkled in the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, an impossible ship was heading toward the heart of the Empire, following roads that ghosts had once traveled. "How long until it reaches Imperial space?" he asked. "At current speed, approximately 72 hours, sir." 72 hours. Not much time for the Empire to prepare for something they didn't understand. The communications panel beeped. Lieutenant Corex looked up. "Sir, we're receiving a response from High Command. They want all sensor data transmitted immediately. They're also sending a squadron of ships to intercept the unknown vessel." Thexval nodded. "Transmit everything we have. And keep scanning. I want to know the moment that ship changes course or speed." As the crew worked to send their data to Nexus Prime, Thexval stood alone at the viewing screen. In his 30 years of service, he had seen the Empire grow stronger and more powerful. They had conquered worlds, absorbed civilizations, and created the greatest military force the galaxy had ever known. But looking at the readings from the unknown ship, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. The ship out there wasn't just unknown. It was impossible. And impossible things were dangerous to an empire that built its power on knowing everything. "Sir," Zara called out, "the ship has changed course slightly. It's now heading directly toward the Nexus Prime system." Thexvol's blood turned cold. Nexus Prime was the capital of the Empire, home to billions of beings and the seat of Imperial power. If the unknown ship was heading there, it meant one of two things. Either it was lost and seeking help, or it knew exactly where it was going. Given the impossibility of everything else about the ship, Thexvol suspected it was the latter. "Continue monitoring," he ordered, "and prepare a second message to High Command. Tell them the unknown vessel appears to be targeting the capital." As alarms continued to sound throughout Vigil's eye station, Thexvol couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The Empire had built its strength on knowledge and control, but knowledge meant nothing when faced with the impossible, and control was useless against something that shouldn't exist. The unknown ship continued its impossible journey through space, carrying with it questions that the Empire might not want answered. And in the depths of space, old ghosts stirred, following roads that led toward home. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and Commander Thexvol wondered if the Empire would still exist when it reached zero. Galactic Empire terrified. Unknown ship detected, no records, no origin, moving too fast. Part 2. The massive towers of Nexus Prime stretched toward the sky like metal fingers grasping at the stars. Inside the highest tower, Admiral Korath Vex read the message from Vigil's eye station for the third time. His scarred face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the datapad tightly enough to crack it. "Impossible," he muttered. Admiral Vex had served the Empire for 50 years. He had conquered 12 systems, destroyed countless rebel fleets, and brought 40 different species under Imperial rule. He was known throughout the galaxy as the Iron Fist of the Empire. But the words on the datapad made him feel like a frightened child. He pressed a button on his desk. "Emergency War Council meeting. All department heads to report immediately." Within minutes, the War Council chamber filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders. General Thok, the massive reptilian head of ground forces, sat across from Admiral Yes, whose tentacles writhed nervously as she read her copy of the report. Dr. Sen, the chief xenobiologist, stared at the data with her large insect-like eyes. "Gentlemen and ladies," Admiral Vex began, his voice echoing in the chamber, "we face something that should not exist. An unknown ship moving at impossible speeds made of impossible materials heading directly toward our capital." General Thok's deep voice rumbled through the room. "How do we know it's hostile? Perhaps it seeks peaceful contact." Admiral Vex laughed bitterly. "General, in 300 years of Imperial expansion, we have encountered 40,000 species. Every single one of them is cataloged in our databases. This ship appears in none of them. That means one of two things. Either it comes from outside our galaxy or it comes from our past." Dr. Sen leaned forward. "Admiral, I've been studying the energy readings. The technology appears to be biological in nature. The ship might be alive." The room fell silent. Living ships were the stuff of legends, stories told to frighten children. The Empire's scientists had always dismissed such tales as primitive superstition. "Explain," Admiral Vex said. Dr. Sen activated a holographic display above the table. The image showed the energy patterns from the unknown ship. "Look at these readings. The energy flows like blood through veins. The whole materials seem to repair themselves, and the propulsion system appears to be growing stronger as the ship travels." Admiral Yes spoke up, her voice gurgling through her translator. "If the ship is alive, it might be intelligent. We should attempt communication before taking hostile action." "No," Admiral Vex said firmly. "We don't take chances with the unknown. I'm sending our best scout ship to intercept and identify the vessel. If it proves hostile, they have orders to destroy it." He turned to his aide. "Send a message to Commander Rylak aboard the Shadow of Dominion. Priority Alpha mission. Intercept unknown vessel and report back immediately." General Thok shifted his massive bulk. "Admiral, what if Commander Rylak cannot destroy the ship? What if our weapons are useless against this impossible technology?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. The Empire's power came from its superior technology and overwhelming force. If they faced something their weapons couldn't harm, the foundation of their rule would crumble. "Then we evacuate Nexus Prime and prepare for war," Admiral Vex replied. Dr. Sen was still studying the holographic display. Admiral, I request access to the restricted archives. If this ship comes from our past, there might be records from before the Great Purge? Admiral Vex hesitated. The restricted archives contained information about species and events that the Empire preferred to forget. Opening them was dangerous, but so was facing the unknown without knowledge. Granted, he said finally. But you work alone, and you report only to me. As the War Council dispersed to their duties, Admiral Vex remained in his chair, staring at the holographic image of the impossible ship. In his 50 years of service, he had never retreated from a battle, never shown weakness to his enemies. But the ship in the display filled him with a dread he couldn't explain. Commander Rilak received her orders aboard the Shadow of Dominion as her ship raced through hyperspace toward the intercept coordinates. She was a hybrid between two conquered species, chosen for her tactical brilliance and absolute loyalty to the Empire. Her crew respected her, her enemies feared her, and her superiors trusted her with the Empire's most dangerous missions. But as she read the mission briefing, she felt something she rarely experienced: uncertainty. Helm, increase speed to maximum, she ordered. I want to reach the intercept point before that thing gets any closer to Imperial space. Her first officer, Lieutenant Zek, looked up from his console. Commander, our sensors can't get a clear reading on the unknown ship. It's like it exists in several dimensions at once. Rilak studied the sensor data. The readings were unlike anything she had ever seen. The ship seemed to phase in and out of normal space, leaving energy trails that defied physics. What's our weapon status? She asked. All systems ready, Commander. Plasma cannons charged, torpedo tubes loaded, and our shield generators are at full power. Rilak nodded, but privately she wondered if conventional weapons would be effective against something that shouldn't exist. The Empire's military doctrine was based on superior firepower and overwhelming force, but their weapons were designed to fight normal ships piloted by normal species using normal technology. Nothing about the approaching ship was normal. In the depths of space, the unknown vessel continued its journey toward the heart of the Empire. Its impossible hull pulsed with energy that seemed to come from another dimension. Its speed increased with each passing hour, as if it was eager to reach its destination. And deep within the ship's living core, something ancient stirred. Memories that had been sleeping for centuries began to wake. The smell of green grass under a yellow sun, the sound of children's laughter echoing across peaceful worlds, the warmth of friendship between species that saw each other as equals rather than conquerors and conquered. The ship remembered what had been lost, and it sang a song of mourning that echoed through hyperspace. It was a song that would soon reach the ears of those who had tried to forget, and the melody would remind them of everything the Empire had destroyed in its quest for power. The iron fist of the Empire sat alone in his office, staring out at the stars, and for the first time in 50 years, Admiral Korath Vex was afraid. Galactic Empire terrified. Unknown ship detected, no records, no origin. Moving too fast. Part 3, The Veil. Nebula drifted through space like a cosmic ghost, its purple and gold gases hiding secrets from a million years past. Commander Rilak guided the Shadow of Dominion through the swirling clouds, her crew tense at their battle stations. The nebula's interference would give them the advantage of surprise when they encountered the unknown ship. Contact on sensors, Lieutenant Zek announced, his voice tight with nervous energy. Rilak looked at the tactical display. A single blip moved through the nebula toward them, still traveling at impossible speeds. Reduce speed to 1/4. I want to get a good look at this thing before we make contact. The Shadow of Dominion slowed as it approached the intercept point. The crew watched their screens in silence, waiting for the first glimpse of the impossible ship that had terrified the Empire's high. Command, visual contact in 30 seconds, the sensor operator called out. Rilak stood behind the pilot's chair, her hybrid features calm despite the tension on the bridge. She had faced rebel fleets, space pirates, and the war machines of a dozen species. One unknown ship, no matter how fast or strange, was just another challenge to overcome. On screen, she ordered. The main viewing screen flickered to life, and every person on the bridge fell silent. The ship before them was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its hull flowed like liquid metal, changing shape as they watched. Patterns of light pulsed beneath its surface like veins carrying luminous blood. The vessel seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else entirely, creating an effect that hurt to look at directly. By the void. Lieutenant Zek whispered. It's alive. The ship was roughly the size of an Imperial cruiser, but their sensors showed it weighed only a fraction of what it should. It moved through space without visible engines, its hull rippling with each change of direction like a living creature swimming through the cosmos. Attempt contact, Relak ordered, though her voice was not as steady as usual. The communications officer activated the standard first contact protocols. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Rylak of the Imperial ship Shadow of Dominion. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. For several minutes there was no response. Then something happened that made Relak's blood freeze in her veins. The answer came not through their communication systems, but directly into the minds of everyone on the bridge. The voice was warm and curious, speaking words that bypassed their ears and appeared fully formed in their thoughts. Greetings, children of the Spiral Arm. We are the Wanderer. We seek the source of the great calling. Rylak staggered backward, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. Around the bridge, her crew members held their heads in pain and confusion. The voice in their minds was gentle, but the fact that it was there at all was terrifying. How are you speaking to us? Rylak demanded aloud. Your thoughts shine like stars in the darkness, the voice replied inside her head. We mean no harm to you, child. We seek only the place where the first dreams took wing among the stars. Rylak forced herself to remain calm. What do you mean by the great calling? What are you looking for? The presence in her mind shifted, and suddenly she could feel vast sadness, as if the ship itself was mourning something precious that had been lost. The song of home, the voice answered. The music that echoes from the third planet of the yellow star, the place where those who build bridges instead of walls first looked up at the night sky and dreamed of touching other worlds. Rylak's tactical training kicked in despite her fear. The ship was looking for a specific planet orbiting a yellow star, but that description could match thousands of systems throughout the galaxy. Can you be more specific? She asked. There are many yellow stars with third planets. The world of blue oceans and white clouds, the voice continued, where small beings with 2 arms and 2 legs learned to dream of flying among the stars. Where they first built ships to carry their hopes across the void. The world they called Earth. The word hit Rylak like a physical blow. Earth. She had heard that name before, in whispered conversations among the Empire's oldest officers. Earth was one of the lost worlds, destroyed during the Great Purge along with the species that had called it home. I don't know this world you speak of, Rylak lied, her training telling her to reveal nothing to potential enemies. The sadness in her mind deepened. You do not remember them, do you? The ones who offered friendship instead of conquest, the ones who saw beauty and diversity rather than weakness. Your empire has done its work well. Lieutenant Zek looked up from his console, his face pale. Commander, long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships moving toward this position. Imperial fleet vectors, Rylak cursed silently. Admiral Vex must have sent reinforcements when the Shadow of Dominion failed to report in quickly enough. Now she was caught between an impossible alien ship and her own fleet. Wanderer, she said aloud, hoping the ship could hear her words as well as her thoughts. Imperial forces are approaching. If you wish to avoid conflict, you should leave this area immediately. We cannot leave, the voice replied sadly. We have searched too long, traveled too far. The calling grows stronger with each passing moment. Earth calls to its lost children, and we must answer. Rylak felt a chill run down her spine. Earth was destroyed long ago. There's nothing left to find. Perhaps, the voice said, but hope survives even when worlds do not. And there are others who remember. Others who carry the dream forward. They are coming home, child. Can you not hear their songs? On the tactical display, new contacts appeared at the edge of sensor range. Ships unlike anything in Imperial databases, moving toward their position at speeds that defied belief. The Wanderer was not alone. Rylak realized with growing horror that she was witnessing something that would change the galaxy forever. The impossible ship before her was not just a single vessel seeking a lost world. It was the harbinger of something much larger, something the Empire had thought destroyed forever. Commander, Lieutenant Zek said urgently, the Imperial fleet is demanding our status report. How should I respond? Rylak stared at the beautiful, terrible ship on her screen and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. She was a loyal officer of the Empire, trained to follow orders without question. But the voice in her mind carried such sadness, such hope, that she found herself hesitating. "Tell them we've made contact with the unknown vessel," she said finally. "Tell them it claims to be searching for a lost world called Earth." As her communications officer sent the message, Relak wondered if she had just signed her own death warrant. The Empire did not tolerate officers who showed sympathy for its enemies. But looking at the Wanderer's flowing hull and feeling the ancient sorrow in its voice, she could not bring herself to fire the first shot. Something was coming home to the galaxy. Something the Empire had tried to erase from history, and Commander Relak had the terrible feeling that when it arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. Galactic Empire terrified. Unknown ship detected, no records, no origin. Moving too fast. Part 4, Doctor. Sen moved through the restricted archives like a ghost, her insect-like eyes scanning document after document on the glowing screens. The deep levels of the Imperial Tower were silent except for the soft humming of ancient computers that stored the Empire's darkest secrets. She had been searching for 3 hours, digging through files marked with the highest security classifications. Most of the records from before the Great Purge had been deleted, but fragments remained, hidden in backup systems and forgotten databases. Then she found it. The file was corrupted, damaged by age and deliberate tampering, but enough remained to make her breath catch in her throat. The header read, "Species classification. Homo sapiens, human, threat level maximum, status. Eliminated." Her clawed fingers trembled as she opened the file. The first image showed a small biped with pale skin, 2 arms, 2 legs, and bright eyes that seemed to hold impossible depth. The creature looked harmless, almost fragile compared to the mighty species that made up the Empire's military forces. But as Dr. Sen read further, her fear grew. Humans, she whispered to herself, reading the ancient text. Highly adaptable, rapid technological advancement, extreme social cooperation across species barriers. Warning, tendency to form emotional bonds with other sapient species. Capable of inspiring rebellion through philosophical influence rather than military force. She scrolled down to find more disturbing information. Humans had been among the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, but instead of using their technology to conquer, they had used it to explore and make friends. They formed alliances based on mutual respect, shared resources freely, and treated other species as equals. This was exactly the opposite of Imperial doctrine, which stated that strength came through domination and control. Dr. Sen found records of human colonies scattered across the galaxy. They had established peaceful settlements on hundreds of worlds, often working alongside other species to build thriving civilizations. Their ships were known for carrying not weapons but supplies, medicine, and teachers. No wonder the Empire destroyed them, she muttered. She continued reading, her horror growing with each page. The Great Purge had not been a military campaign against a threatening enemy. It had been a systematic elimination of a species whose very existence challenged the Empire's right to rule. But the most disturbing part came at the end of the file. In the final recorded encounter with human forces, an Imperial admiral had reported something that made no sense at the time. The humans did not fight us. Even as we destroyed their worlds, they continued to try to communicate. Their final message was, "We forgive you. We understand your fear. But remember, children of the stars, that there are always other ways to reach the light. We go now to find new homes among distant suns. But we will return when you are ready to remember what you have forgotten." Dr. Sen stared at the words, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the cold archive room. The Wanderer had said it was looking for Earth, the human homeworld. But according to these records, Earth had been destroyed over 200 years ago, along with the rest of human civilization. Or so the Empire had believed. She dug deeper into the files, searching for any mention of humans who might have escaped the Purge. In a footnote buried deep in a military report, she found what she was looking for. Intelligence suggests that several human vessels escaped the final assault on their colonies. Long-range sensors detected ships leaving galactic space, heading toward the void between galaxies. Pursuit was deemed unnecessary as the vessels would not survive the journey. But what if they had survived? What if humans had spent the last 2 centuries building new civilizations in distant galaxies, growing stronger while the Empire believed them extinct? Dr. Sen's hands shook as she realized the implications. The Wanderer was not just an impossible ship piloted by an unknown species. It was a human vessel, returning home after centuries of exile, carrying technology that the Empire could not understand, because it had never bothered to study what humans were truly capable of. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime's command center, Admiral Vex received Commander Relax's report with growing dread. "Earth?" he repeated, his scarred face pale. "The ship is looking for Earth." The communications officer nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. Commander Relax reports that the vessel claims to be searching for the homeworld of a species called humans." Admiral Vex felt his world tilting beneath his feet. He knew about Earth. He had been a young officer during the final stages of the Great Purge, had watched from orbit as the human homeworld burned under Imperial bombardment. The sight had given him nightmares for years, but humans were extinct. Their worlds were dead. Their ships had been destroyed. How could one of their vessels be traveling through Imperial space 2 centuries after their elimination? "Get me a secure channel to Dr. Sen," he ordered. Within minutes, the xenobiologist's image appeared on his screen, her insect-like features tight with fear. "Admiral," she said without preamble, "I've found records of the species. Humans were eliminated during the Great Purge, but some may have escaped to other galaxies." "Explain," Admiral Vex demanded. "Humans were not conquered because they were militarily superior," Dr. Sen said. "They were eliminated because they were philosophically dangerous. They had a documented ability to inspire other species to rebellion simply by existing. Their approach to other sapient life forms was so fundamentally different from Imperial doctrine that their very presence undermined our authority, Admiral." Vex listened with growing horror as Dr. Sen described human civilization, a species that built alliances instead of empires, that shared technology instead of hoarding it, that saw diversity as strength rather than weakness. "Sir," Dr. Sen continued, "if humans have returned with advanced technology, and if they still remember what the Empire did to them and their allies." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Admiral Vex understood the implications perfectly. Humans had been dangerous when they were peaceful. If they returned seeking revenge, if they had spent 2 centuries growing stronger and building new alliances. "How many ships are approaching our space?" he asked his tactical officer. "Long-range sensors show at least 50 unknown vessels, sir, all moving at speeds comparable to the first ship." "And Admiral, they're not all the same design. It looks like multiple species are traveling together." Admiral Vex closed his eyes. 50 ships piloted by humans and their allies, carrying technology that the Empire couldn't understand, seeking the homeworld that the Empire had destroyed. It was his worst nightmare made real. "Send orders to the entire fleet," he said quietly. "All ships are to converge on the Veil Nebula. We have a Code Black situation." Code Black. The complete mobilization of Imperial forces. It had never been used before, not even during the most serious rebellions. But as Admiral Vex stared at the tactical display showing the approaching ships, he realized that the Empire faced something worse than rebellion. They faced the return of a species they had tried to erase from history, a species that had somehow survived in the darkness between galaxies and grown strong enough to come home. The humans were coming back, and they were bringing friends. Admiral Vex wondered if the Empire would survive their homecoming. Galactic Empire terrified. Unknown ship detected. No records, no origin. Moving too fast. Part 5 Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, her weathered hands resting on the bio-neural interface that connected her mind to her ship. She was the last human born on Earth, carried away as a child when the evacuation ships fled the burning world. For 60 years, she had searched the dark spaces between galaxies, following faint signals in ancient star charts, always hoping to find the way home. Now, after decades of wandering, she was close enough to smell the cosmic dust of her birth system. The Wanderer's living consciousness touched her mind gently, sharing the pain it felt as old memories surfaced. Through the ship's enhanced senses, Sarah could perceive the approaching Imperial fleet, their weapons powered and shields raised for battle. "They still don't understand," she whispered to her ship. "Even after all these years, they think the answer to everything is violence." The Wanderer pulsed with agreement, its bioluminescent hull patterns shifting to deeper, sadder colors. As they moved through the Veil Nebula, the ship began accessing what remained of the old galactic data networks, downloading centuries of suppressed history. What it found broke Sarah's heart. Earth was gone. Her beautiful blue-green world had been reduced to radioactive ash by Imperial bombardment. The colonies that humans had built in peaceful cooperation with other species had been systematically destroyed. Entire civilizations that had flourished under human friendship had been enslaved or eliminated. But worse than the destruction was the erasure. The Empire had wiped human culture from galactic memory so thoroughly that even their former allies had forgotten what they had lost. Generations had grown up never knowing that there had once been a species that offered friendship instead of conquest. "Show me what they did," Sarah said softly. The Wanderer shared its findings, flooding Sarah's mind with images from the Imperial archives. She saw her homeworld burning, saw the colony ships fleeing into deep space, saw the systematic destruction of everything humans had built. But she also saw something else. Hidden in the deepest files, buried beneath layers of classification and deliberate forgetting, were records of the Imperial crews who had carried out the destruction. Many of them had been humans' former allies, species that had been conquered and forced to serve in the Empire's military. They had been made to destroy their own friends. The revelation filled Sarah with something deeper than anger. The bio-neural interface carried her emotions into the Wanderer's living systems, and the ship began to change. Its hull pattern shifted from sad blue to brilliant gold, and deep in its organic core something ancient awakened. The ship began to sing. The song was not heard through ears, but felt in the soul. It was the sound of every dream the Empire had crushed, every friendship they had severed, every act of kindness they had punished. It was the music of memory, calling out to all who had forgotten what they once were. And across the galaxy, the conquered species of the Empire began to remember. In the Imperial fleet converging on the Veil Nebula, strange things started happening. Aboard the dreadnought Eternal Victory, a Etherian gunner suddenly stopped loading plasma rounds and stared at his hands in wonder. For the first time in his life, he remembered his people's songs. The beautiful music they had made before the Empire taught them to sing only hymns of conquest. On the cruiser Iron Fist, a Keldan navigator felt tears streaming down her face as she recalled the star dances her ancestors had performed, celebrations of the cosmos that the Empire had forbidden as primitive superstition. Throughout the fleet, crew members of dozens of species began experiencing memories they never knew they had lost. The Wanderer's song reached deep into their genetic memory, awakening knowledge that had been suppressed for generations. Admiral Vex watched his tactical display with growing horror as ship after ship reported navigation errors and communication difficulties. He could see what was really happening. His crews were abandoning their posts, gathering in groups to share recovered memories of their lost cultures. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered desperately. "Return to battle stations immediately." But his orders fell on deaf ears. Across the fleet, the conquered species that made up the Empire's forces were rediscovering who they had been before the Empire claimed them. Commander Relac, still facing the Wanderer in the nebula, felt the song reaching into her own hybrid genetics. Suddenly she understood why the Empire had forced her parents' species to interbreed, to create soldiers with no cultural identity, no memory of what they had lost. But the song gave her back what had been taken. She remembered the Thexian love of mathematics and the Corvan appreciation for art. She remembered that her people had once been explorers and poets, not just warriors. "Lieutenant Zek," she said quietly. "Stand down weapons, Commander?" Zek looked confused. "You heard me. Stand down all weapons. We will not fire on the Wanderer." As the song continued to spread through space, Sarah Chen made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Through the Wanderer's communication systems, she sent a signal into deep space, toward the dark regions between galaxies where her people had made their new homes. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Wanderer," she broadcast. "I have found Earth. I have found what remains of our galaxy. The time of wandering is over. Come home." The response came not from one ship but from hundreds. Vessels of impossible design materialized at the edge of the system, their bio-neural hulls pulsing with the same golden light as the Wanderer. They were human ships, but they carried crews of many species, the descendants of refugees who had fled with humans into the void, building new civilizations based on cooperation rather than conquest. Admiral Vex stared at his tactical display as more and more ships appeared. Each one was unique, clearly grown rather than built, incorporating design elements from dozens of different species. They were beautiful and terrible, representing everything the Empire had tried to destroy. "Sir," his communications officer said with a shaking voice, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship." Sarah Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her gray hair flowing around a face marked by years of wandering but brightened by hope. "Admiral Vex," she said, somehow knowing his name. "I remember you. You were there when Earth died. You were young then, just following orders." Admiral Vex felt his scarred face burning with shame. "You should be dead. All humans should be dead." "We are very much alive," Sarah replied gently. "And we have brought friends. Species you thought you had conquered forever. Civilizations you believed you had destroyed. They remember now, Admiral. They remember what they were before you taught them to be afraid." On ships throughout the Imperial fleet, the conquered species continued their quiet rebellion. But it was not a rebellion of violence. Instead, they simply stopped fighting. Weapons powered down, shield generators deactivated, and crew members sat together sharing recovered memories of their lost cultures. The Empire's greatest fear was being realized. Their subjects were remembering that they had once been free. "What do you want?" Admiral Vex asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah smiled sadly. "We want what we have always wanted, Admiral. We want to go home. We want to rebuild what was destroyed, and we want our friends to be free to remember who they really are." She paused, looking directly at him through the screen. "We offer you the same choice we offered your predecessors 2 centuries ago. You can choose cooperation over conquest, friendship over fear. The galaxy is big enough for all of us." Admiral Vex looked around his bridge at his crew, many of whom were no longer paying attention to their stations. The Etherian gunner was teaching a Keldan engineer one of his people's forgotten songs. The Thexian mathematician was showing a Corvan pilot star patterns that meant home. In the old language, the Empire's greatest weapon had always been the conquered species, belief that they had no choice but to serve. But the Wanderer's song had given them back their choice, and they were choosing freedom. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the unknown ships are dispersing throughout Imperial space. They're not taking hostile action, but they're singing." Admiral Vex understood. The humans and their allies were not here for conquest. They were here to remind the galaxy what it had lost, to give back the memories and cultures that the Empire had stolen. As the Wanderer's song spread from system to system, carried by the returning fleet, the greatest empire in galactic history began to crumble not through violence, but through remembrance. On 1,000 conquered worlds, people looked up at the stars and remembered that they had once dreamed of flying among them as free beings, and for the first time in centuries they dared to dream of freedom again. The humans had come home, and they had brought the greatest gift of all, the memory of what the galaxy could be when its children chose love over fear, cooperation over conquest, and hope over despair.